What's up, y'all? It's Miss Childers from Track 3. I'm here for your read aloud version for today for our article, What Are Human Rights? So whenever I come to an article like this, the first thing I know I need to do is I need to take a look at the questions to make sure I am prepared and I know what I am reading for. What am I trying to answer as I read this? So our questions are at the very bottom of the article. So I'm going to go ahead and open up today's learning check just so I can get an idea what I'm going to be answering, what I'm looking for as I read. All right, so first I'm going to have to answer a short answer, describe what human rights are in my own words. Okay, so I need to know what are human rights. I need to know what ancient civilizations are some of the first to think about what rights normal people should have. That I think you will hear in the video, but hopefully we hear it in the article too. But then we get into the article heavy questions. Read the summary of the article. Choose the answer that best goes into the blank to complete the summary. All right, so number 1, human rights are ideas about basic freedoms that everyone deserves in order to live safe lives. Number 2, what comes next? Number 3, not all governments protect human rights equally. After World War II, countries around the world decided to form the United Nations to protect human rights around the world. So we have to figure out what comes between, right? Not everyone is equal around the world with human rights, and human rights are a basic idea about freedoms. Next, we're listening for what is the most likely reason the author included the paragraph about the Holocaust. So why mention the Holocaust? Which paragraph in the Enlightenment and afterward best supports the idea that the Declaration of Independence did not give human rights to all people in the United States? And last but not least, which section of the article best highlights who initially thought about a set of rights that extended beyond citizenship? Okay, so those are the questions we're trying to answer. Now that we know what we're looking for, let's go back to the article and let's get started. All right, let's do this. A right refers to a way of thinking or living that deserves to be protected, right? So if you have a right, we need to protect the right. A right all people are born with is called a human right. Okay, there we go. A right all people are born with is called a human right. Some of the most basic rights are the right to live and the right to believe what one chooses. Many people think that governments should protect the human rights of all their citizens. And remember, we heard all citizens were mentioned in one of our questions. Most governments protect some civil rights in their constitution and laws. The right to get a driver's license is a civil right, for example, but human rights are different. Okay, so now I'm wondering, well, what is so different about human rights? The freedom to go where one wishes is a human right. Some people believe that God grants human rights. Others argue that human rights are a natural part of life. And I can think of, right, we just heard in the video, our natural rights. Okay, John Locke tells us about natural rights, and those come from natural law, which comes from the Romans. Kinds of human rights. There are many kinds of human rights, but not everyone agrees what they should be. Some put limits on government power. The right to free speech and to worship as we like are important human rights. And when they say worship as we like, all they mean right there, you can believe whatever religion you want to, and that's okay. So is the right not to be put in prison for no reason. Other kinds of rights sometimes require government help. These include the right to food, safety, safe water, and a safe place to live. Still other rights require the cooperation of countries. Among them are the right to peace and clean air. Different cultures and governments, though, define human rights in different ways. Human rights in early times. In the past, few people had any rights. They only had duties they owed their ruler. A king, queen, or other powerful leader had final say on how people were treated. The ancient Greeks and Romans were among the first people to think about what rights normal people should have. And I'm going to underline that because I remember something about normal people was mentioned in our learning check. A Roman group called the Stoics believed in an idea they called natural law. They said natural law gave some rights to everyone. They even applied to people who were not citizens of Rome. The Enlightenment and afterward. The idea of fairness and legal rights grew. In Europe, the 1600s and 1700s were known as a period of the Enlightenment. And I'm going to underline that one because I remember we talked about the Enlightenment in social studies. And if we're thinking about that enlightened idea, right, it's us learning more. That's how I'm going to phrase it, right? We're being enlightened. The light is turning on. Okay? John Locke of England was an Enlightenment thinker. Okay? I'm going to underline Locke. He seems important. He wrote that individual rights are more important than government power. In France, Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that the purpose of governments is to protect those rights. So I'm going to make a note to myself over here. Government is to protect your rights. Okay. Other thinkers called such rights the rights of man. The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783, and the French Revolution of 1789 grew out of these ideas. The U.S. Declaration of Independence lists life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as rights that all men got from God. French thinkers wrote the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. These documents put in writing what it meant to be human, free, and safe. But even in the United States, many people did not enjoy full human rights. Black slaves had almost no rights and could be bought and sold like animals. Women of any color had limited rights and could not own property or vote. Most slaves did not gain the basic right of freedom until the 1800s. Women in most countries did not gain the right to vote until about 100 years ago. Human rights since World War II. World War II, 1935 to 1945, provoked a world-changing event in regard to human rights. After the war, the world learned that Nazi Germany had committed horrible crimes. In their brutality and hatred, the Nazis killed millions of Jews and other civilians in Europe. This event is known as the Holocaust. And remember, the question asked us, why is the Holocaust mentioned? So I'm going to draw myself a little arrow. Why mention? Okay. An international court put Nazi leaders on trial for crimes against humanity. Many were found guilty. The Holocaust convinced many countries that it was necessary to protect the basic rights of people around the world. And I think that last sentence might help us out, right? The Holocaust convinced many countries that it was necessary to protect the basic rights of people around the world. More than 50 countries formed the United Nations, or UN, in 1945. In 1948, this international organization issued the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay. The document mentions many different rights people around the world should have simply for being born. These range from the right to privacy to the right to flee to another country to escape war. The United Nations also established Human Rights Day, celebrated on December 10th each year. Protecting human rights is an ongoing challenge. The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights investigates abuses throughout the world. They have the difficult task of protecting the rights of men, women, and children everywhere. All right, so now we're done reading. Go ahead, click back on that learning check, and go ahead and knock out those questions. Good luck, and remember, go to office hours if you need any help or if you're having trouble with the article.